Back in August, the Pokemon Company showed off a brand new board update for Pokemon TCG Live. Yesterday, they finally released the new board to the public in what turned out to be a massive update to the game. I'm showing you gameplay from the old board right now just in case you haven't seen it before. The biggest complaints with the original Live board had to do with bench Pokemon being minimized, lights constantly flashing in your face, and the creepy avatars always staring at you until they take your soul. If you ever watched a video or a stream of mine and wondered why there was a giant card on the left side, it was to cover up the avatars. Well, that era of Live is over and a new one has begun. First up, the board. Obviously the board has changed with a Pokeball in the middle to make it feel more like Pokemon. Next, the avatars are hidden by default. That was always the case on the mobile version. They only pop their creepy heads out when an emote is used, and now it's carried over to the desktop version. We also received new attack effects, and bench Pokemon are now seen in full. But the biggest change with the update has nothing to do with the board. As you can see, the speed of the gameplay is around 3 to 4 times faster. This is by far the greatest thing the developers have done since the beta launched in February. Games in Live used to take forever because of how slow it was. Now, games whiz by, almost too quickly. It took me about an hour to get used to Adam Sandler holding down the fast forward button on my monitor, but once I did, Live's gameplay suddenly felt better than PDCGO. Before you think I've gone soft and will never hate on Live again, don't worry. It's very clear that the developers didn't do any sort of reworking to the underlying game. Live is still live, and that means problems. To accommodate the full-size bench Pokemon, the devs shrunk the avatars in the scoreboard. It makes almost no sense to continue having the avatars if you can barely see them when they show up. And why not just get rid of the scoreboard and have each player's timer near their deck or something, since it's easy to count prize cards as it is. Probably the worst side effect of the new board is your opponent's hand encroaching on their bench. It doesn't affect gameplay too much, it's just annoying and shows an overall lack of polish. And because Live is still live, there's plenty of bugs. After every game following this update, my hand shows up in the celebration screen. I've also had an opponent's Solrock shrink back to the pre-update size on the bench, and when a Pokemon on your bench can use an ability, it should glow. But I've had several instances where that Pokemon won't glow even though its ability can be used. Like I said, Live is still live, it just got a makeover and now runs everywhere instead of walking. But none of my complaints change the fact that the sped up gameplay is an absolute game changer and makes Live more enjoyable. In addition to the update, the developers gave us a new letter to the community. They highlighted the common themes from the August survey, which revealed players liked crafting and the Battle Pass content, but disliked matchmaking, the bugs, and just the entire art style. I understand them wanting to start out positive, but those negatives are really negative. Yes, the crafting was easily the best part of TCG Live. As I've said a billion times, you'll save tons of time and money in Live compared to PDCGO if you want to be a tier 1 player right away. Unfortunately, players hated the slow matchmaking, constant bugs, pace rewards, lack of a collection viewer, and again, the entire art style. Most of these are things that should have been identified internally before releasing the game to the public. Thankfully, they've begun to address the art style and pace of play, but there's still a lot of work to do. Another massive piece of news is that the Live limited beta will launch in more countries later this month. They're also planning to launch the beta worldwide by the end of 2022. So to answer the number one question I get asked, Pokemon TCG Live should be out in the United States later this year. And if you watch my video about Live getting delayed to next year, it looks like they're using the loophole I suggested. They'll continue to call it a beta and delay the full launch so PDCGO can remain online until March 2023. Noticeably absent from the letter was any mention of expanded, so I wouldn't expect that until the full version of Live launches next year. And that's it. While Live still has a buttload of issues, the developers are making progress, and increasing the speed of play has bought them a ton of goodwill in my eyes. If they can get the matchmaking issues under control, I might suggest people actually migrate their PDCGO accounts. As it stands, download Live now and don't migrate your collection. Just mess around and see if you like it. And if you do decide to play Live, make sure you check out my starter guide for some helpful tips and tricks.